Good evening and welcome to Tuesday night here on DJNTV. Tonight we're going to be digging in to our good friend Jerry Bazada. Good evening, Jerry.
Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, doing well, doing well. Back-to-back nights. This is pretty intense.
Yeah.
But for those of you wondering, we're not getting into the typical stuff we're talking about. Although, Jerry, because of your banking background, when we get to kind of back into the end of the show, I want to talk a little bit about some tips for DJs when it comes to their finances and such, and we'll get into that a little bit. But
yeah,
I want to kind of dig into the DJ career as you've had, because you've been in the business for at least 5 to 10 minutes. So for those who kind of give us an idea of where you are today as far as the entertainment side, where you work, what part of the country you're working, and what type of events you do. Just give us a quick little thing, and then we're going to jump back and kind of build the history to get back to where we are today.
Sure. So where I am in my career right now is I'm more or less just doing weddings in the Northeast. I will do some special events every once in a while. I'll pop into a club at the request of the owner to fill in for a DJ that couldn't show up at last minute. But really, I'm kind of winding down my career at this point. After doing weddings for so many years, corporate events and everything else, I just want to head down to Florida. And I have one goal in my life. I want to drive the monorail. So that will cap off my career. Now, I could DJ on the monorail. That would be really unique. However, with the connections that I have down in Orlando, I already have people going, oh my God, you'd be great at Walt Disney World. Oh my God, you'd be great at Universal. Oh, I could see you on the cruise ships. And I'm like, okay, people, calm down. Okay.
Maybe if I were younger, those things would be, but that sounds like it would be a lot of uncomfortable living.
But really what I enjoy doing now as a DJ is passing on the years of knowledge to those that are coming up through the ranks. And even tonight, I had a couple that called me about a wedding, and it's kind of out of my market. It's on an island on the coast of Maine, difficult, and I was kind of giving them the counseling, and it was very interesting because they had a spreadsheet with 10 DJs that they reached out to. And I was kind of coaching them on how to do the selection process, what you need to be aware of, questions to ask. And at the end, Dwight and his bride-to-be Zoe said, Jerry, you ought to go into consulting. There's a ton of brides out there that would love to just talk to you so they know how to properly pick out a DJ.
For sure.
Now, I'm at the top end of the market for that. They had a budget of $2,000. I was quoting them $4,000. So what I said to them was, I said, listen, pick out the DJs that are in your price range, and then let's talk about your conversations so I can help you through the selection process. So Bammo, after tonight, I think I've got a new career path as a DJ. I'm going to be the DJ's consultant.
Oh, interesting how that works. But yeah, I could definitely see, once a person in essence takes I'm trying to, you're interviewing me for a hiring. Once you take that off the table, then it's much easier for them to accept some advice and some things as a person who is just interested in my well-being, not interested in the money they can make off me type of a thing. So.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. This was, as long as I've been in this industry for 40 plus years, even today was a learning piece for me, because what I understood from this couple is everybody that's posting on the boards, they don't understand what it takes and so forth. It's absolutely correct. They don't know. They, like I said to them, I'm going to need to have somebody come with me to help. And they're like, well, we could get one of our friends to help. And I said, no, because the person that I'm going to hire to help knows how to help me set up. They know how to break down. They know where my stuff is. I said, honestly, I'm going to spend more time trying to tell the person what to do, and it's going to delay me in getting finished, where the person I'm bringing, will know what to do and how to help me. And if there's an issue, they could jump in. I said, at the end of the night, your friend that's going to help me is on his 15th martini. And the last thing I want him doing is picking up my controller, half out of the bag, tripping over something on the dance floor, and there goes a 3,000 controller right out the door.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we've all had that fear as people are like, "Oh, let me help you carry the gear to your car."
Yeah.
No,
that's okay. That's okay.
We're okay.
Yep.
I got it. No problem. No problem. I'll walk up those 37 steps to get out of here all by myself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Jerry, you mentioned you've been in the DJ world for 40 some years, but I want to even go back earlier than that, because a lot of us got into this as part of our love for music, and there was that person who was influential in your early years. Who was that person that when you as a youngster looked up to and was like, wow, that's so cool? They inspired that love of music for you.
Yeah, it's somebody that most of us know, and his name is George Hess. George Hess worked for Arista Records. I know he's got radio stations. So when I was in high school in the late 70s, I was in the marching band. I was in a concert band. I played trumpet. I played tuba. I played drums. I played bass. I played the big bass fiddle. And one of the things back in the late 70s was everybody had to have that rack stereo system. So I remember working in restaurants and saving up my $400 to get my Pioneer rack system, which had the receiver, it had the equalizer, it had the dual deck cassette player, it had the turntable, and the speakers that were taller than I was.
Yes.
Okay. In a room that was 10 by 9, and yet I was playing as if I was at Coachella. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of got it. And then my best friend, Mike, he started getting into music with me, and he was working for a plumbing company in Norwalk. And one day he called me up and he said, Jerry, I was doing a job. He said, I ran across this record store in Norwalk. And he goes, what do you say we go down and visit? And so him and I went there, and I got to meet George Hess. And George was running the record pool for Connecticut. And so we would go down there once a week, and we'd buy the 12-inch vinyls that he was selling, and I got into the record pool. Plus, at that point, everybody loved going to the nightclub. So I got into the nightclub scene in New York and in Connecticut, and just practicing at home with the vinyl on my single player and picking up the music and knowing beats, knowing keys, and so forth. I said I could do this.
Yeah.
And so George and his wife, who at the time was Vanessa White, which was working for BLS, they gave me an opportunity to spin in the clubs. And so from there, I started to amass my own record collection, buying through the pools. And then I just started auditioning to either be the warm-up DJ or working with the resident DJ clubs throughout New York and Connecticut. And that's where it really began to take off.
So now, were you doing this during your high school, or was this after high school?
No, this was after high school and into college.
Okay.
So literally with me DJing and working, so I was going to school, I was working in the bank, I was DJing at night, I was also bartending. By the time I graduated, I had enough money to pay off my $10,000 in student loans, and then turn around and buy myself for cash a 1984 Z28 Camaro with T-tops. And that's what really got me hooked on it. And I became very involved in the music, and I would practice and I would grow from there. And my involvement with it branched out even further than that. I started getting involved when Jim Robinson came out with Promo Only, where Jim started bringing the CDs from him, and when Pete Warner started Pleasure Island, and they went to the record companies to create pools for CDs, and I started to transition. And I remember I went from Technique turntables to what we all knew as the Denon rack system. That was the ultimate. Your Denon rack system with the dual CD players that came out. And that was when Promo Only started releasing all of the labels on Promo Only CDs.
Yeah.
I moved to Maine in 1994, and it was funny. I had got myself settled. We still hadn't sold our condo and gotten rid of our apartment in New York. And so we were in a transition period. Well, in York, Maine, there was a local nightclub, and it was called the Aqua Lounge. And I just went in to have a drink, starting to get to know the local vibe. The night I go in there, the DJ was drunk. And so the owner, Pete Pastor, and Steve Blaisdell were like, oh, what are we going to? Pete goes, all right, I'll go up and mix music. And I looked and I said, well, Pete, I know about music and I've done some DJing. You want me to jump in? And I remember he had the whole Promo Only collection. He had the dual decks. He had the 2 turntables. And I took off. And at the end of the night, Pete goes, you want a job? He goes, would you mind DJing for us on Saturday nights? And so it just continued to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a chance to perform in Vegas. Wyatt Magnum, who ran from CMS Music Service, that was very involved in the bar, restaurant, nightclub show, I got to perform multiple times. I got myself integrated in just by outgoing and getting to do clubs in Vegas. Early on, I got to work with Rooney G, which was amazing. Saw the advent of all the digital format, the advent of the video DJing, and it just continued to grow. In Maine, it was funny. I was performing at 54 as part of the bar, restaurant, nightclub show, and there was a bar owner in Portland, Maine, and it was called the Pavilion. And he came up to me after my performance, and he goes, "You're from Maine?" He goes, "You can't be from Maine. You're too damn good. How the hell are you from Maine? How the hell are there good DJs in Maine?" So he said to me, he said, "Look, we've got DJs in and out." He said, "Do you mind giving it a shot?" And I said, "No." I said, "I'd be more than happy to." So I went in on a Saturday night. All of a sudden, his employees are coming up to me and they're going, "We just told Tom Manning he finally got a real DJ in the club."
Oh, geez.
So it continued to grow, and from that, it morphed into me doing weddings. Mm-hmm. And once I really became involved in the DJ industry, it was actually Brian O'Connor that reached out to me back in 1999 and said, "Would you speak for DJX?
Yep.
We want somebody to talk about financials." And so I became involved in DJX.
Because through that whole time, you were working the DJ thing, you do in the club, and you also were working in banks.
Banking. Yeah, so I was a commercial lender.
Mm-hmm.
And so from DJX, it got me the introduction to X-Mix with Larry Clausen. I built a strong relationship with Jim and Pete Warner. And still to this day, Pete, Nick, Jim, they all confer with me. Larry Clausen and his team, whether it be Wild Bill and so forth, they all confer with me. But it just kept building and building and building and building. And then as I saw the club scene become very competitive, the $50 DJ showing up, I said, okay, it's time for me to exit. However, before I exited in my own hometown, a friend of mine, Steve LaRusso, his family owned a restaurant. And he goes, we kind of want to transition. They were doing comedy nights on Saturday night, and then they'd have a DJ kind of do dancing for an hour and a half.
Yep.
He goes, "I heard you at the Aqua Lounge." He said, "Would you mind taking over Saturday nights?" And I said, "Sure." And so him and I got together one night afterwards for drinks, and he goes, "Jerry, I want to build Thursday nights." So now here's where my creativity came into club promotions. Mm-hmm. And he said, Thursday nights, we get all the surfer. He said, we can get the surfers, we can get the lifeguards. The lifeguards are dragging the girls. He goes, there's a lot of tourists here. I said, you know what? I said, I remember going with my grandfather for nickel beer Boilermakers at the local bar in Bridgeport, Connecticut. He goes, that's it. We'll do nickel beer night. And so on a Thursday night, we charge a $5 cover. We'd serve nickel draft beers in 4-ounce glasses for the first hour. I was raking in 600 people a night into his restaurant that converted to a nightclub at night, and making him over a 10-week run net in his pocket over $40,000. They put the restaurant for sale. So a restaurant next door, Vinny Labello, knocks on my door. He goes, I don't want to do nickel beer night. He said, but I want you. He said, and I want to have a fun night. And I said, good. What do you want to do? He goes, let's do a hip hop night. I'm like, do I look like a guy who knows hip hop, Vinny?
Well, yes, you do.
So what we did was we built upon that, and it became a huge following. And then there was another club in town. It was taken over by Norm Paquin, and he found out about me. So I helped build his nightclub, which became one of the largest LBGQ nightclubs in Maine. And it's still going today. I helped him transition into video. I helped him expand to a second dance floor. So I got to do all these really unique things within my whole own DJ world. So, but then when I found in 2011 and 12, is I really enjoyed weddings. I didn't like getting up, staying out till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then have to be my desk at work at 8 o'clock in the morning.
For sure.
The bones in the old age started setting in at 40. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this. And what I found the real joy was now seeing couples in their weddings and enjoying what they were doing in their weddings. And so that I just began to build my career and my reputation to now. From that leaded me to being on the advisory board for the Knot and helping a lot of other wedding vendors, writing, being on podcasts like this, and just sharing my industry knowledge.
Yeah.
And that was absolutely amazing. So that's my career.
Yeah.
And I'm sticking to it.
So have you been a single op pretty much the whole time, or did you kind of dabble into a multi-op at all?
No, I stayed as a single op. I didn't want to dabble into the multi ops. I really didn't want to be managing people, and it would have been a little too difficult because I would have had to give up my full-time banking career. And I really didn't want to do that because I was enjoying what I was doing, lending to the service industries. I had a great time working for Bank of America, for TD Bank, for Cambridge Private Trust. And I just was comfortable with what I did. I felt comfortable, and I built my reputation with the venues on me. And I just didn't want to venture. But I've had a lot of multi-ops over the years that have reached out to me about getting my advice on an expansion. So, and it's been amazing. It's really interesting to see the changes and the evolution of our industry.
Oh, yeah.
And if I can maybe step into that a little bit, because I think it's important. We see all of these posts on social media about sync button, don't use the sync button. Oh, they're not a real DJ. Oh, final DJs are pre-dinosaurs. But there's one thing that I've really observed about our industry over the years. Now, let me step back. When you were in a record pool, you were forced to go home, put every single record on, and what did you do? You counted the beats for 15 seconds, and then you took your pencil and you wrote the beats on the vinyl. You listened to where the break lines were. You made notes on the album cover. Okay. As we transition to CDs, and you would get your monthly CDs in the mail from Promo Only, you had to make sure you had a multiplayer CD player in your car. And the first thing is I come out of the post office from my post office box, rip open that envelope, take every CD, load it into the player. And I had a notepad on the dashboard, and I'm listening to every song, and I'm making notes, and I'm taking notes. Okay. What did you do? You learned about the music. Okay. You learned to understand what the beats were. You learned to understand the vocals. You learned to understand the transitions. So you really took a serious interest in it. And so that I have seen, what has happened is we become, and I'll share a specific example with you. I'm going to dump 10,000 songs in my library, but do I really know what those songs sound like? And here's a perfect example. A family member was getting married up in Buffalo, New York, and I was invited to the wedding. Now, he had hired a local DJ company. And first of all, I walked in the reception, and the two DJs had attended my seminars at DJX. So immediately, both of those DJs looked at me and had an instant heart attack.
They're like, hey, I've seen this guy before. Yeah.
And they're like, one of them goes to me, oh my God, oh my God, I am so petrified that I'm going to do something wrong because I had admired you. And I say, guys, pretend I'm not here. But the interesting part about it was that the groom's family was from Ecuador, and the bride's family was local to Buffalo. So the groom had said to them, we want some Latin music. So at one point, the groom comes over and he goes, Jerry, my family really wants to dance to Latin music. We need some salsa. We need some merengue. So I walk over to the DJ, say, hey, guys, doing a fantastic job, but groom's kind of looking at what can we get in salsa? I said, what have you got lined up? And the two DJs look at me and they go, well, Latin music is Latin music. We just downloaded a bunch of stuff. What do we play? And I looked at them and I go, guys, you didn't preview this music? You didn't understand what the tempo, the heritage is? And they go, well, no, all Latin music is the same. And I went, okay, guys. So they said, Jerry, what do we do? I said, okay, bring up the playlist. And I looked at it and I said, okay, I recognize this song. I recognize Ricky Martin's an easy starter. This one, I said, guys, here, I curated your next 6 play songs.
Mm-hmm.
They put them on. Everybody danced. Everybody had a great time. And he walked over to me at the end of the night and he said, wow, we learned a real valuable lesson from you. And I said, what's that? He goes, we got to do better planning when we're doing a wedding.
Yeah.
And I said, guys, you know what? I feel humbled that you learned this and I was able to help you out. I said, because this could have turned out to be a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I kind of share that experience because it's important for us to know and understand our music.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what's happening today. I don't think people are listening to music. You know, every day I go on to XMix and I take the time to listen to all the new music sets that comes in. What am I going to download? How does this fit into the vibe of what I'm creating?
Mm-hmm.
Going out to Beatport, listening to Block and Crown and their remixes. Okay, if I'm going to do an 80s themed wedding, how do I kick it up to a new level? It's not about you creating your own mixes. It's not about how good you can work a computer. And to be honest with you, that's what our controllers have become.
Mm-hmm.
Is our computers.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Yes. And where is that? I'm working with a DJ right now where I told him, you're not going to touch the sync button. What I want you to do is learn about the beats.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this practice. I pick 2 odd songs and I said, before I come back next week, you are going to try to perfect bringing these 2 songs together. Mm-hmm. And you're going to perfect understanding. And I'm going to ask you where the break lines are without looking at the display. I want you to hear and tell me where the break line is. Where do you know it after the song? You know? And I think that's what we've lost in our craft. That's what we've lost in our art, is being able to do that. I don't want to take anything away from the greatest arena DJs that are out there. Okay. Mm-hmm. But it's way too easy to go in on a computer and fiddle around with a song, where when it was vinyl, it was up to you to put 3 or 4 decks, learn how to use the rotary mixer and figure out what you were going to pick. Mm-hmm. I'm going to share something with you, John. I don't know if you were at DJX in 2021, but they had the party at Purple on a Monday night. And I put together with Michael Evers and who else was it? Jake. And we did a vinyl only party. Mm-hmm. And after my set, I played Mondelez. I played Patrick Hernandez, Born to Be Alive. I played John Jolie. I mean, people were coming up to me going, oh my God, I haven't heard these in ages. And at the end of my set, I'm kind of walking through and his father comes up to me with his son. And he goes, I've been a DJ for 30 years. I started on vinyl. He said, I looked at my son and he goes, that's what you need to learn before you do anything further. And his son said to me, he goes, I'm blown away. He said, how did you even know like where to pick up and how the tempo? And he goes, I said, I wasn't using master tempo. I was listening to the pitch in my ears. Mm-hmm. And I said, I used my knowledge of music to blend those records together. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's where our industry has lost its craft, and us being truly musicians. And I think really doing it.
Yeah, you talked earlier, Jerry, about your experience being a musician. You know about beats, as far as, you know, the 4 beats in the stand and all the different aspects of it, where when MJ did a drop it on the 1 little seminar, and then Mike Walter's done a variation of that where he's just, you know, talked about, you know, 1 2 3 4 2 2 3, how to count music. And for some people, this was like, oh my gosh, it was eyes wide open. They had never heard of that or never thought about it. And I think this is music education. As simple as that is lacking with the younger generation that isn't in band and isn't in that. They don't get much of anything, so they have no ideas. And then they want to be a DJ, and they're like, oh, well, why can't I? I mean, as long as the bass hits at the same time, I'm good. Isn't that good enough? No, not quite.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was at a festival, and it was the organizer of the festival brought in like 2 or 3 high school kids to kind of fill the gap between the sets. And there was one high school kid up there, and he goes, oh, everybody loves me and this and that. For 20 minutes, he had one solid 130 beats. same drum tempo, mixing in and out. He goes, everybody loves me. I'm phenomenal. And I said, you're not taking the crowd on a journey. I said, you've basically bored me for 30 minutes of the same beat, the same tempo, the same monotone things. I said, what you did was great. I said, but you didn't take people on a journey. So he came back to hear my set. And at the end of the set, he walked up to me and he goes, man, he said, I got a lot to learn. And I said, you know what? I am grateful that you were humble in that comment. I said, when we perform, we need to take people on a journey. We need to get them to experience it. Here's another interesting thing. We all have these preconceived notions. I was filling it at a venue as a bartender because they were short, and the DJ there was performing. It was a wedding. The first 7 songs he all played were slow songs. The crowd started booing him.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I walked up to him and I said, I don't need to help. I said, I feel horrible for you. I said, I'm looking at this crowd. What do you have? How can you take them on a journey? And he goes to me, well, I played slow songs. I looked at a crowd. Most of these people are old. They're not going to dance to any fast music. And I said, do me a favor. I said, shut up and dance. And he goes, really? He said, that's a pop teen song. And I said, you can take my suggestion or I'll just go back to bartending. So he looked at me and he dropped the song in. Every single person hit the dance floor. I said, if you had done that to begin with, I said, you would have had everybody out there. And so, again, it's that journey, it's that experience, it's that reading. So you learn from others. I don't want to say mistakes, sometimes but misunderstandings. Yeah. Others' misunderstandings. Okay. And that's where we have to really be flexible. We've got to be creative. We've got to be artists. And artist doesn't mean I put a computer program and I redo a whole song. That's not. You're simply remastering somebody else's work. You're simply redoing somebody else's work. But what about if you got creative on the fly? What if you mixed live and you tried to do stuff that's creative live? And that's what I do. I never create premixes and play them at any event. I challenge myself, and I've taken a rock song and mixed in an EDM song, used my stems or whatever, and got creative. And you know what? That's when you feel good. Like when you do this and you go, wow. I watched some of Nick Spinelli's, videos where he gets really creative, and I give him credit for that because he's being an artist in the moment, and you could see watching him, he's working it. He's getting into the music, he's reading the crowd, and he's enjoying what he's doing. And when he finishes it, he stands back humble to savor the moment. So
yeah, that to be able to express one's musical love through the artistry of the mix, I think is probably the neatest part of my latter part of the career here, because back when we didn't really do that. That wasn't a central Minnesota thing. The mixing is for weddings. People would be like, we want to hear the whole song. Don't you be cutting that song short there. Now we can do things, and it's much more acceptable and much more enjoyable.
Well, somebody said it's interesting where you say cut songs short. There's been a number of posts on the board about people asking like, okay, when do you cut the song out? Do you play the shorter version? Okay. If you've got people singing along with the version, you play the whole song.
Yeah, you go.
I mean, how many times have we gone to Paradise by the Dashboard Lights and you're like, okay, when is this going to end? But people are out there having fun.
Yeah.
When I play Shout, I use the 7-minute version because people want to get down low on the floor. They want to jump up. It's all part of what you create, that experience for them. It was interesting. We talked last night about Gimme Gimme Disco. Okay.
Yep.
And what they're doing is they're creating an experience. Okay. They found a way to go out there and not perform as a DJ mixing, because they're not mixing. They're simply playing one disco song after another where people can sing along to. And my daughter is actually going to the ABBA one. And the idea is the whole night they play ABBA.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did the theater night, literally this DJ had a huge collection of Broadway tunes, and people could go up and request it, and that DJ would put it on like the next song coming up, or if they had a request for 4 or 5 of them, wasn't beat mixing them, but was getting the crowd in active participation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what works. That's why when we look today, when I look at the curated playlists that couples are sending to me, you look at all of those are all interactive songs that they're picking. Footloose. Oh, come on. I want to dance with somebody. That has been on every single curated playlist for the past since COVID ended. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, they're all screaming and shouting. Look at Queen. Any Queen song you do. And I've had countless ones as encores. Okay. You know, the Michael Jacksons, all the other ones that come in, they're all part of it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I often say, they'll say, well, of the modern music, what's the 2 most requested groups? Flo Rida and Pitbull.
Yeah.
I mean, they when you look at the top music, David Guetta, Alessio, if you want to pull that, a few Tiesto, but, you know, they're not grabbing at the Marshmello. They're not grabbing it at the guys who were at the arena concerts. That's a whole different setting.
Yeah.
But it's stuff that they recognize.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's been a great journey and a lot that I've learned. And still, where I am in my career, I want to help other DJs become successful. I want them to experience the joy and the elation. You know, every time I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm making myself a cheese sandwich because I'm off a high. You know,
yeah.
Or finishing a wedding, stopping at Cumberland Farms to get the 2 hot dogs for $1 at midnight.
Yeah, DJ's
and then
diet.
burping the whole bit. Yeah, the
horrible.
DJ diet.
Oh, but yeah, it's just terrible. So Jerry, as far as the education, you know, that's obviously in the day job. That was a big part of that, you know, education, keeping up to speed on things. But in the DJ industry, you obviously were getting some educational things, or you're doing things along the lines of that. What were some of those aspects or areas that you were able to hone your DJ skills educationally wise?
Educationally wise, it was learning how to do weddings. It was learning about the crowd. It was learning about the music. So, you know, I would attend at DJ Times, the DJ Expo early on, the mixing seminars, the music seminars. I think that's what's missing right now is the art of the music. I mean, if we look at the education pieces that are out there, we're talking about SEO search and AI technology. What about getting back to the basics of music theory? Okay. What about getting back to those basics? And that's what we had a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that's missing from the education piece. It's the music theory, the mixing, the blending, you know, understanding why artists create certain types of bass lines, why they create the music that they do create. And a lot of that is missing out there, John, from the education piece. Business wise, I had the business skills. You know, I knew how to run a small business because I was financing that.
Yeah.
So for me, that's second nature. And I think in the DJ world today, whether you are a club DJ or you're a mobile DJ or you're a karaoke DJ, you've got to be a business owner. And what was disappointing to me is for the 20 years that I spoke at DJX, whenever I did a financial seminar, the attendance was poor because they were all running off to go, you know, attend the Chavez seminar because somebody was giving something away. But then afterwards, I get the phone call. Oh, I'm in trouble. I need money for my business. Yeah. Why weren't you in my seminar?
Yeah, exactly.
We
talked about that.
Yeah. And so, again, that from the education piece of it, we also learn from others. We would get together and you'd practice vinyl. I remember going to the clubs with the resident DJ and we would just start putting on records and start fiddling around together. As I'm teaching other DJs, I'm actually learning myself because I'm teaching stuff and I'm going, oh, wow, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I ought to just remember that in the back of my mind next time I do it.
Yep.
You know, the other thing is practice. All throughout my career, my former spouse knew 2 nights a week, I'd kiss her goodnight, I'd tuck her into bed, and I go into my studio and I'd be working from 11 until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I would challenge myself to get used to it. Challenging myself with the new records, the new music that came out.
Sure.
Okay. I take the most recent releases. Okay. Where can I pull back from? And even today, when I'm down in the dumps, I've had a miserable day at work, I'll pull out my controller. I'll throw a flash drive in. It's what I call my 80s rave music. And there's about 40 songs on there. And every time I challenge myself to remix in a different order. And what I find is doing that, I discover things about a song that I didn't realize were there. And so that one flash drive with the 40 A raves, I mean, it's got, things like, oh God, I'm just drawing a blank here, but it's all the big 80s, 90s rave songs. Okay. And every time I'm going to do a different way, I'm going to start out with a different song and mix this one in. And what it does is it challenges my music ability, my music concentration, and my ability to actually listen to the music. And there's times I could go, wow, that was a great set. And I didn't write it down and I didn't record it. But, there's a reason why I didn't do it, because I don't want to go back and play it all over again. How many DJs are comfortable with the set? And so every time they go in the club, there was a DJ that was playing on Friday nights at the Pavilion. I could walk in any Friday night and I could literally name every song one after another that he was going to play, because he got comfortable with his set. He didn't want to break out of that comfort zone. And, that's the real thing. Now, I'm going to do a shout out. When I was in Maine, there was a Great Powers Entertainment, and Great Powers had a DJ store, and it was located in Saco, Maine. Good friend of mine, Cool V, Vince Ogden, me, Vince Ogden, and Joe Bermudez, who many of you know is a great DJ out of Boston. He's had several #1 dance hits. We all kind of get together, and Greg said, I want to make a night where people who want to DJ can come in and practice. And this was a heartwarming story. There was a young mother who came in and dropped her son off. He had to be probably maybe 13, 14 years old. So of course there's other DJs in there, and they're all playing around with the equipment and scratching and this and that. And he finally got his chance at the tables. And he started put on 2 records, and he's trying his best, and he's trying to blend them, and there's the monitor there. And I remember this DJ walked over and goes, let me show you how it's done. He goes, if you want to be a DJ, you got to learn this. And he did some flair stuff for about 5 minutes. And I saw the kid's face just totally disappear. I looked at Vinny and I said, excuse my French, what an asshole. And I hope I didn't offend anybody listening. So Vinny and I walked over to the kid, and he was standing there, and he goes, I'm not really good. And my friend Cool V turned to him and said, well, neither am I, but I'm watching you. Maybe I can learn from you. And so we got him to start playing. And I said, listen to the music, listen to the beats. And we were giving him some tips, but we were standing back. So the night was over. We probably spent a good maybe hour with him, and he got to be able to beat mix a couple of records. So he's leaving, and I looked at him and I said, so, do you have albums at home? He goes, well, I have my father's older stuff, but, it's just my mom and I now. And he goes, I'm trying to save up money to buy stuff. So he walked out the door. I looked at Vinny. I said, hold on. We went to Greg. We grabbed a half a dozen albums. We paid Greg for them. We go walking outside. I said, come here. I said, Vinny and I want you to have these albums. I said, this is what we want you to start practicing on. And a couple of them were what he was using. And he looked at us and he said, well, I can't pay for these. I said, we're not asking you to pay us for it. I said, it's our gift to you for having the ability to watch you grow. So he went off, and we saw him walk to his car. Vinny and I went back inside. About 5-6 minutes later, his mother comes walking inside, and she looked at us and she said, who's the guys who gave my son the CDs? And I said, or the records, I'm sorry. Who gave my son the records? And Vinny and I looked and said, we did. I'm sorry. Did we do something wrong? She bursted out to tears and hugged us and said he lost his father to cancer. And all he wanted to do was grow in music. And she said, you made this young man's life. Well, guess what? At the pavilion, years later, he ended up coming in as an apprentice and then grew up to be a DJ in the Portland market. To me, that was the most rewarding. That was one of the most rewarding parts of my career.
Wow. Yeah. Neat.
So, and so when you see those things and you do that, and I want to employ other DJs as we start to grow and we start to mature and gray, think about those that are coming up. Think about those that are out there that we can help build their career and be a little bit humble. It's not about you. It's about us as an industry as a whole. It's about us uniting together and supporting one another. It's about us educating each other. That's why, like I said last night, even though it's a down economy, you need to be at the Marquee Show. You need to be at DJX. You need to be at ARM DJs. Pick one of those. Network and learn from your peers, because your peers can also learn from you.
And I think, we talked to education part of it now, the importance of that, but sometimes just being around other people that know a little bit about it. Because yes, you can go and you can hang out with your folks from church, you can hang out with people at work, the day job type of thing. But to be around peers, there's just a different vibe when it comes to that.
It's interesting you say that, John, because I've performed multiple times at the DJ Times for the various parties. And people will come up to me and go, why are you doing that? You're going to be criticized by your peers. Oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't get out there. And I'm like, your peers don't criticize you. They look to learn from you from what you're doing on a stage. Yeah, now if I get up there and I fumble and the music stops and I'm slamming one song into another, but I learned all the times I performed, whether it was early in 1999 up to most recently in 2022 at Boogie Nights. Nobody's ever going to criticize you.
Yeah.
Your fellow DJs, yes, there are some young, arrogant SOBs that don't deserve to be in our industry because they think they're God's gift to DJing.
Yep.
I understand that's out there. But the vast majority, the 99% rule, are going to be there to support you, encourage you, and give you the techniques to be a successful musician.
Yeah, because they want to see you succeed, because that's what most...
And they're going to learn from you.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's such that little voice in the side that basically our worst critic is ourselves. And that comes through so often, and it'll be in that fear of like, well, then maybe these other people are going to laugh and point, and it's like, no. It isn't that way.
They're not going to laugh and point. They're going to respect you for having the courage to get up in front of your peers and show the best talent that you can give.
For sure.
So,
sure. Jerry, we're running out of time here, and I wanted to just to spend a little bit, a couple of minutes here. When obviously you come from the banking experience and the money side of running a business and such, and that's an area in which DJs, we don't start out thinking about the business side of and even in our conversation, you enjoyed the music side of it, and you built up, and you were enjoying the part. If you can give DJs a couple of tips on how to basically keeping track and handling their expenses in a responsible way, especially in this day and age. I mean, there's so many different aspects of it, but you've seen common problems that DJs or even small business people have, and just to give them a couple of thoughts or tips of things that they should be doing and be more cognizant of to be more successful in their business.
Okay, so there's a couple of things, and I'm going to go back to all the seminars that I did. Number one, you as a business owner need to create a budget. You need to know what is the cost of acquiring clients and what are your expenses for doing every gig. You shouldn't be pricing off your competitors. So every year you need to sit down and say, this is how much money I want to earn. This is what it's going to cost me to get it. This is what I charge for gigs. This is how many gigs I'm going to do. And get yourself an online QuickBooks. You should be tracking your income and expenses every month. Number two, you have a ton of resources out there. Community colleges that have free programs on running a business, whether it be marketing, whether it be financial, the Small Business Administration, SCORE. If you're unsure how to set up the finances of your business, you can go in for free seminars with SCORE, the Senior Corps of Retired Executives, and it's part of the SBA. Okay. Don't rely on just reading on the internet. Sit down with your accountant. Sit down with another DJ. Ask them how they run their business. Okay. When it comes to marketing, learn from Alan Berg is great. Invest in your marketing tools. Alan is great. He gives you a lot of valuable nuts that you can walk away with. So you have to invest in yourself in what you're doing, but you need a strong financial. Also, stick to your budget. Come up with what you're going to spend and then be willing to adjust it. Like this year, as we talked about yesterday, gigs are down. So what are you going to cut back on? Okay. Look at what you need to do. What's the first thing we do in a down economy? Everybody cuts out marketing. That's the worst thing you could do.
We all pull back.
So maybe you're not if you're a multi-op, you're not taking the guys out to dinner as much. Maybe you're asking the multi-op people to kind of help out a little bit. Okay. You're asking other people that are within your multi-op organization, can you make a couple of visits to venues out there? So you really have to run it as a business. Any local community colleges, again, will have free programs that can help you through that, adult education programs, so you don't have to spend a lot of money. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but going to the DJ conferences, okay, $400 for an all-day pass and maybe $1,000 to go for, even if you go down for the day and you hit a couple of seminars and you network, it's still a valuable education tool. Okay. Stay away from the complaint boards. Okay. Stay away from the negative boards. Okay.
They are there.
Yeah. And look at it and then build a peer network. Okay. Reach out to a couple of DJs that you feel that you see are successful, that they're sharing tools, and set up a one-on-one coaching session. Hey, guys, who's ever listening to this or listens to the recording, you can call me up. I'll give you a free counseling. I'll give you some right advice. I've worked with countless DJs who were trying to buy equipment, fix their credit report, if they were buying a building. I'll share one with you. This was a DJ who was acquiring a building and renovate it for his new headquarters, completely frustrated with the bank he was dealing with. So he called me up, and Robert said, hey, Jerry, I need some help. So I reached out to my contacts in the community banks because what he was doing really fit more with the community bank. I connected him and he got the project complete. So reach out to other people, reach out to your peers. We had in Maine, we built what we call the Maine Wedding DJ Network. It was all independent DJs and there was 6 of us. And we would get together once every other month for dinner at Applebee's or whatever. It wasn't expensive. And we'd all talk about what we were doing. Well, what it built upon was we started referring to each other. We started sharing leads. We started sharing ideas. Oh, this person needs this song. I know my library. My friend Bill would say, Jerry, I've got it. I'll send you a copy. But where that really built up and we actually were recognized by the Not For This, Mike, very good friend of mine, got a call from his fiance the Thursday before Labor Day weekend. Mike ended up in the hospital. And so between our network of individual DJs, within 3 hours, we had all his weddings covered for the month of September while he was recuperating.
The power
and
of the
so
network.
we all, the power of the network. And that's really important. This is not go it alone. Companies that are successful didn't go it alone. Okay. Steve Jobs didn't go it alone in his garage. How many years ago to create Apple Computer? Okay. Gates didn't go it alone when he created Google. He relied on other industries and he relied on other people. I look at where my position is in the banking industry for years. We learned by attending seminars, doing training. When I was at Bank of America, we had to do 40 hours of training a year. Even as well advanced as I was, it was still a requirement. You need to embody that same thing as a DJ. You need to go through that training. You need to go through that development. Yes, if this is a hobby for you, fantastic. If you're used to doing 3 or 4 weddings a year, but those that are making a career out of this, it is a business. So training, knowledge, networking, building your peer group is all important to you being successful.
For sure. Good stuff, Jerry.
Yeah.
Very good stuff. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Our time is up. If people would like to get in touch, you mentioned that. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
They can absolutely connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn. Okay. Go to my website, Maine, like the state Maine, discjockey.com, or they can just email me, jerry@mainediscjockey.com. I'm more than happy to help out. Drop me a note, private message in Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm actually finding more and more DJs are using LinkedIn, and that's where we're connecting more and more. So, yeah. And certainly, John, they can also drop you a note, and you feel free to share my phone number with them.
Definitely can. That's for sure. So,
yeah.
Thank you, Jerry, for being with us. There should be one of our Tuesday night music shows should be rolling here in about 10 minutes tonight, and then at 10 o'clock Eastern, then the DJNTV chill room will be open, djntv.com/chill, where they do the recording of the Tuesday night music show with Jay and John and Brian and the whole crew. So plan to hang out and watch a little bit, and then come back at 10 o'clock Eastern and hang out with the crew there. So, Jerry, once again, thanks for being on tonight.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.